Yay, misses you.
What's up, man?
Oh wait,
Aw.
this is actually aiming at the wrong
It's a
screen.
hot mess right now, so they see.
Oh no.
All right, we're going live right now. It's fine. You guys can keep having conversations. That's not to say. That's just to say, don't say anything extra crazy or extra personal. Let me actually change this really quick so people can actually see you all. What's up, everyone? How is everyone doing tonight? I hope everyone's good. We finally made it.
Yep.
What's up, Sam? How you doing? We finally made it to the very last. We made it to the end of 12 weeks. This is exciting. I'm excited about it. This has been this 12 weeks has gone by fast, but I don't know. It was daunting. Doing 2 boot camps at once was actually pretty daunting. So although I had a great time, I'm also excited to kind of I'm gonna take a like a 1 week break from the boot camps at least. We're gonna have some fun. What's up, everyone? What's up, Tim Brick Squad? What's up? How are you doing tonight? What's up, D Flair? We're gonna let a people get in for a few minutes. Commonly we start the stream at we let everyone kind of come in, get comfortable for the first 10 minutes or so. But we'll probably start up in 2 or 3 minutes. We'll have the panelists introduce themselves. Hopefully you guys can see everyone. We'll do a sound check, make sure everyone can be heard as well. There we go. What's up, Maurice?
Hey, how's it going, Aaron?
Pretty good. Yeah, we got a whole crew here.
Hey, Maurice. What's up, man?
Hey, Terrence, how's it going? Where's everybody else
brother?
at? Oh, wait. Oh, man, we got all sorts of folks. Hey, guys, how's it going?
Hey, yo, there's a lot of people.
Nicole, how's it going? Hey.
So
In weeks.
I know, right? Since I've seen you face to face.
depth-based green screen. Yep. Yeah, I always forget to use my sweet Zoom features that I usually like to use. They're usually pretty exciting. But
Sorry, I just want to say, is that Sam? Is that the Sam that I know?
Yes, it is. Howdy.
Hey, how's it going? Sorry, guys. Sorry. I should have came here.
No worries. I'm excited to see you too, Maurice.
Yeah, how's it going?
Good. Can't complain.
Really, man?
People I haven't seen in forever.
Yep.
So.
Oh.
hey, Yeasty goodness. Hey, UK Web Boy. How's everyone doing tonight? For anyone who was here earlier watching Terrence and I both struggle all today and be tired, but also make some significant progress on our app. For anyone who doesn't know, we're running a project this week called Project or Operation Quarantine. It's pretty great. We're trying to build a learning platform, an open source course builder where people can take all the free information that's available online, curate it, and be able to build it. Put it into GitHub. Well, whether they know Git or not, we actually found a really cool Git-based CMS that will allow people to actually contribute without actually having to know Git. So experts who are not techies can also make their courses as well. And then we're going to make an application to kind of display that, consume that information, and display it. But that is an open source thing, so we will share that as we get a little bit farther with that. But we are doing that pretty much all day. We start somewhere between 9:30 and 10 o'clock every morning, and we finish somewhere between 4 and 5:30. At least it's only this week. We won't be running that after this week, but we will be working on the project at time. So keep an eye out for that if you have any questions. Hey, D Flair, we do not have we have questions I have questions lined up in case people do not ask questions, which you'll always ask questions. So ask away, ask the questions away. I will queue up the questions, but we can get started with some introductions. So we're going to go from top left, at least top left on my screen, and we're going to go all the way to the right, down, and back to the left. So we're going to start with Corey, end with Kevin. So what we're going to do is first we're just going to introduce ourselves. Well, I guess now we're going to end with Maurice. But we're just going to introduce ourselves, name, kind of what you currently do, just some of the technologies you kind of touch right now so people can know what, just have an idea of what you kind of mess with every day. And then just maybe a little exciting thing about yourself, just so people can get a feel for who you are. So let's go with you, Corey.
Hey, how's it going? My name's Corey. I'm a red team pen tester for various private companies. I touch a lot of systems all the time. I touch Unix, Windows, Macs. I use a lot of scripting language stuff, so mostly Python based, a little bit of JavaScript, a little bit of whatever we need to use in order to make systems work. I also touch a lot of proprietary tools for doing my penetration testing stuff. So, yep. And then a little fun thing about me is I am currently playing Stardew Valley with 2 other people in here.
Excellent. I don't think we've ever had a pen tester on, so that's good. That's exciting. I think there will be. There's a lot of people from all kinds of backgrounds who come through, so I'm sure there will be some questions for you. All right, Amy. Well, Amy and Jim.
Hey, I'm Amy. I'm a software engineer, and I've been in the field for about 1.5 years now. I program mostly in JavaScript. That's the project I'm working on. We use Node as a backend, so it's JavaScript frontend and backend. We use React and do some AWS stuff. So we have a lot of like AWS services that we use, part of our project. I'm sure like more things will come up, but I guess that's the gist of it. Jim?
I'm also a software developer. I've been doing it for like maybe 5-6 years. I currently work with mostly Angular, but previously I've worked with AngularJS and Java. I've used Scala. I did some like big data stuff using Spark. Yeah, that's mostly it.
Anything exciting you want people to know about you that you do in your free time or anything?
Yeah.
We're both pretty good axe throwers. We just won a doubles tournament.
Congratulations. I was super excited when Amy told me about that. I was like, they're the best. Just you guys, I feel like you guys do such fun stuff and I'm always so jealous. Oh,
I
awesome.
also do aerial with Nicole. Let's pass it on to Nicole.
Look at that.
Good segue.
Nicole, you want to go ahead?
Oh, sorry. I've been playing around with my headphones because Bluetooth has decided not to work. My name's Nicole. I am probably one of the newest professional developers. I've been a professional software engineer since last March, but it's been a hobby of mine since I was 12. It was consistently coming up in different workspaces, and it was always my favorite part of my job without getting the salary. So I decided to do a boot camp at the end of 2018. I graduated at the beginning of 2019, had my first job in DC with the US Coast Guard, and now I work for Fearless. My current project, I am a front-end Ruby on Rails developer with the stack with a backend made of Java. We are currently making a health app for the Medicare, Medicaid participants, and hopefully gonna make a huge impact. Yeah, I actually got this job in part because I do aerial with Amy, and yeah, I also swing dance in my spare time.
That's awesome.
Nice.
All right, Sam, you wanna go?
Sure. I'm Sam. I'm the CTO of a startup called Saber Technology Solutions. We're like a really scrappy 2-person, 3-month-old startup, and it's not all that glorious, but we're having fun with it. I'm working with all kinds of technology, so everything, front end, back end. So a lot of React, a lot of JavaScript, Node, Ruby, Python, Java, Elasticsearch, AWS, you name it. Let's see, I'm just, kind of have fun with what I do. I'm just trying to always, expand my skill set, broaden my horizons, and add new skills to my arsenal. As far as sort of interesting things, let's see, I got a second kid on the way in 2 months. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, not much free time right now, but just hanging in there while it lasts.
Awesome, congratulations.
Thanks.
Terrence, I was gonna skip you, but I'll let you back in. You can go ahead and
Oh, you can skip me.
All right, cool. Yep. No, it's okay. Now go for it. Tell the people who you are.
I mean, everybody I think knows. Terrence used to work at Fearless. Did a software engineer. About 9 years. Latest project was Go. We created a Firebase API, BCDA, beneficiary claims data API, giving data to beneficiaries a little bit faster than the normal process. The normal process, I believe, is paper. And then they wait for like an email to get dropped to the inbox. It's like 3 months. We made it a lot faster. That was a fun project, learned a lot of stuff. And then I recently switched over to Mastermind, helping Aaron out. I'm having a lot of fun. This project that we're doing right now is I'm learning how smart Aaron is. That's basically what's happening. Aaron is a genius, bro.
If you just say it confidently, people believe you. And so
no, he's actually a genius.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, man. Just over at Mastermind, recruiting company, connecting companies with people, engineers, trying to find that perfect job, that perfect connection, and also helping people code, teach. We're teaching people how to code and just DevOps, software development. I love it. It's fun. It's risky and it's exciting. I'm nervous every day, but I'm having a lot of fun. And Aaron's a genius, so I really hope I know this is gonna work.
I just want you to know that you are now known as both the guy who touches his face all the time and the guy that can't draw. Just so you're rapidly, both of those things are true. So yes, awesome. Kevin.
Hi, my name is Kevin. I am a web developer for a design agency. I'm doing it for 8 or 9 years now. We do a lot of websites for small to mid-sized businesses, or most of them are LAMP stacks like Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. Also work a lot of JavaScript, React. Recently been doing a lot with Amazon Web Services, EC2 instances, RDS, databases, things like that. I love to cook and I love to eat a lot. And I'm also Aaron's uncle.
This is true. And I also can confirm his love for eating.
Oh yeah.
And he's thin. I'm not thin. He's very thin, and it's frustrating for me.
No, I'm getting fat from me though.
Well, I can't say that I'm upset. So, I'm joking. Cool, thanks. Anything you want people to know about you? Anything exciting that you do in your spare time?
Spare time, I love to play video games, build computers, repair computers. That's kind of been a passion of mine, I think, ever since I was 14. And yeah, that's about it.
Cool. And last but not least, Maurice.
Hey guys, I'm Maurice Benson. I've been a software developer for about 15 years now. My focus and passion has been scientific software development, but pre-2010 that wasn't paying very well, so I was in the cyber realm for about 5 years. So played a black hat, kind of working on doing black hatty things. And but now that there's this idea of data science coming around, I hop back out. I've been exploring artificial intelligence, machine learning, mostly using Python, but every now and again having to write something a little faster in C++. Let's see, my free time, I like computing. So I don't know, always kind of setting something up, setting up another environment, playing with something, trying to push the realm of the possible. So.
You're being super modest. You also do a lot of community work, dude.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, for the most part. No, I just try to hang out with cool people doing cool things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, as you all can hear, there are a lot of pretty dope people on the panel, all doing different things. So again, everyone, you can queue up your questions. If you have any questions, I'll throw them into the mix. We do have some questions. We have a list of questions for the panelists. You're also going to get to hear about kind of more about each of their backgrounds as we kind of run through things. But yeah, just as questions come to mind, we will go ahead and ask them. So what we're actually going to do first is, before we get into the very first question, we're going to have the first person kind of give us their background. Does anyone want to volunteer to kind of talk about what they've done, kind of their experiences in tech so far? Does anyone want to go first? We're going to get to everyone throughout the night, but does anyone want to go first? You guys are going to make me pick.
I will absolutely go first. Yes.
Let's go. Cool. Excellent.
Everybody know, well, I don't know if everybody know, I originally started my career growing up in Georgia. Actually, my first job was probably the last month I was in college. It was a remote. It was with CSC. It was some DBA stuff. I didn't want to do that at all. And then I had another interview at In-Depth Engineering. It was a Navy contractor. And I drove up to, I think that was Silver Spring, Maryland, had the interview, drove all the way back down the next day. They told me I had the job. I moved up that next week. I was in a hotel. I had no money. I was living off of the little minimum wage money I made. I banked in college. It was really crazy. I stayed in a hotel for like 2 weeks. I worked that job for like 2.5 years, and it taught me so much. I was a Java developer, and I was surrounded by all these C++ people, and they knew Java, and every day was just a learning experience, and I eventually got good. And this is the same guy, Aaron, I told you that like the CEO like walked up to me and told me I was like the hardest working person. And then I like almost broke down, my knees buckled. It was like, man, that job was so fun. And then I did that. And then my next job was, I was doing Android Java development on this mobile app they already had. That's also the first job I did a little Python. I was working, first job was Navy, this one was Army. So I was still in the DoD space. And that's also the job where I walked in the next day and they laid everybody off. They laid off like 30 engineers. That was the contract. Me and Aaron talked about it the other week, where they thought they were going to win a recompete and they didn't, and had everybody on this one contract. And I walked in and people were crying, and that taught me a lot, actually. That taught me it's really out of your control sometimes. And it was kind of hard because I was like 3 years out of school and it just happened like that. And I didn't have a lot of money saved up. So I was freaking out a little bit. And then I found something else, a company called Novetta. And that was when my first job. I was doing C#. And we did biometric stuff. It was a lot of algorithms trying to match up irises and fingerprints using these scanners. It was a lot of, we used MongoDB. I was getting into heavy JavaScript. It was my first web service I was writing. And they really let us, it was like a team of 3 people, and they just let us have it. And that was a lot of fun too. I did that for a while. And my manager went to become a preacher. I don't know what happened. He was
Very
like,
interesting.
He was just like, yo, I'm gonna become a preacher. And I was like, all right, well, good luck, man. You know, I didn't want to, you know, he did that. That was pretty cool, yo. He was like a real country dude too. And he did that. And and then my next job was, that's when I was at, my next job was Boost, and I worked for the Department of Justice. And that's when I was working on this Silverlight application, also C#. I think they liked the experience I had from Novetta. So I was working at Department of Justice for about 2 years, and then went to Aberdeen for an extra year. And that's when I was commuting to DC, for that long commute, that hour and a half each way stuff. But that was a pretty cool project. It was old technology, it was Silverlight, but it was high visibility. The FBI was using it. So when bugs happened, it was a problem, like a real problem, because they couldn't create new investigative cases. So whenever the system went down, it would just get, within an hour, and your email would be blowing up and everything was just crazy. But we try not to have any of those problems. And it actually went really, really smooth. And that's when I got a big pay bump. Also, it was a big pay bump. And they kept giving us awards. Like every 3 months, it was like award after award after award. And as an engineer, I don't like to really get into that stuff. I don't like to, when they talk really good about you, when they talk really bad about you, you kind of got to stay focused and level on like what you're actually doing a lot of times. So, they kept giving those awards, but I was like, this don't mean nothing. We still got stuff to ship out. We still got
flexing.
We still got code to, no, I'm not flexing. But that's how it is, man. D-Flare said, yo, I'm reading it. And I did that, and then that was cool. And then I ended up at Fearless and doing Golang and writing the application for CMS, Medicare and Medicaid beneficiaries and stuff like that. And yeah, man, it's a lot of different experiences. It's a lot of, I went Java, C#, Python a little bit, Golang, all types of different stuff, all types of stacks. I started off in 06, I went to college, graduated 2010. I've been doing this for like 9 years. It's been a roller coaster, I would say, to say the least.
So that's dope. So how many years of experience would you say that you have, and what engineering level would you kind of consider yourself?
How many years of experience?
Yeah,
I graduated 2010, and I'm this is 2020, so probably going on 9.5, 10 years. I would say I'm about, when it comes to software development, I would say I can get the job done, man. I would say if I'm slightly above average, honestly. I don't think I'm the greatest, but I do think I can find out how to do things very quickly. And I think that's a big part of software development. You got to be able to, when it comes to actual software development, actually programming, you got to be able to figure out why this code is broken, or what this what's causing this race condition, or what's causing this weird log, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? You got to be able to figure out those things. And I think after a couple of years of doing it, you see the same type of problems over and over again when it comes to development. If you've been doing it for, every day for, year after year after year, over time, you're going to eventually build up those skills to recognize problems when it actually comes to in the code and like in the weeds, sort of say. But yeah, I think honestly, I just get the job done, man. Like,
would you consider yourself mid-level, senior level, mid-senior, super senior, junior? And I'm asking purely to show everyone how hard it is to kind of judge. A lot of people get hung up on judging where they're at, and I think someone who has a good amount of experience, as Terrence does, it's difficult for him to kind of place himself. It's different everywhere you go. I just want to see what his answer was going to be. And I'm actually glad it's hard for you to answer.
I think it is hard because you judge yourself harder than what the market rewards you as. Like I think, I don't know. How does the panel feel about that? Like, I feel like we're more hard on ourselves than what other people might think. Honestly, I think you know what I mean?
But it's also, you never experience the same problem twice, right? So it becomes a lot more about your problem solving skills than it does maybe your actual, how many languages you know. So even though, like you say, okay, I've got Mongo and I've got, this stack, and okay, 2 years from now, you could pick up Mongo. Okay, the API is going to be a little different. It's going to have some new features. 2 years from now, you're going to pick up some JavaScript framework. God forbid they change every other month, right? So like your experience becomes not necessarily tied to the technology that you played with, but how well you're able to solve those technological problems.
I'll jump in and say that a lot of times I see a lot of people who are having that confirmation bias, like, I don't really think I'm good, I'm not good enough for this, or like I'm not where I should be, or people are taking me more seriously than I think they should. One of the big things I do see, though, is that I'll get repetitive issues, but they'll always be slightly different. And so you have to take like that experience you had in the past and then try to apply it to this new thing that's just ever so slightly different.
I'll jump in there as well. I think the difference really between, senior and more junior in terms of being a developer is going from being a doer to like an enabler of others. When you're sort of new to this, it's commonly you have imposter syndrome, and all you want to do is kind of keep your head low and just, get the job done, and hopefully nobody notices that you're struggling a little bit. But as you sort of gain competency and experience and start to really just build confidence, you realize that no, you don't know everything. There's a lot. You realize how much you don't know, but you also realize how much opportunity there is to help other people with what they're doing. So you can kind of, and it's amazing how much influence you can have on sort of helping a team reason through a problem, or like, consider all the different trade-offs to a solution or something like that. And that's really the difference. It's less about like the number of tools, or like how fast you can code a solution or how optimized it is. That's not a good measure of like seniority really per se. A lot of it has to do with your ability to sort of enable others and enable, get to the best outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So let's hop into some of the chat questions. So the situation we're in right now, we're all quarantined. COVID-19 has presented some unique issues. Unfortunately, we saw this in the Sunday stream as well. There was a lot of people getting laid off, a lot of people losing their jobs, and this is becoming a time where people, I think, are looking to change industries or find something that may be a little more resilient in times like this. And so people, I've seen just in the past week or so, people kind of diving deeper into tech. There's a lot of people online doing free teachings and things like that now, which is super great. But Al Capone says, Al Capone 15 says, "I'm sorry to ask, but I just got laid off from my hotel career. I'm very sorry to hear that. We're really sorry to hear that. But I'm looking to get into a boot camp online. I have no coding experience. Do you all think this is a good idea or not?" And I think this is an interesting question because I think a lot of people might be struggling with this. So Nicole, you want to start us off with this one?
I do. Just so a little bit about me. First of all, I'm so sorry you got laid off. That is terrible. My background, really, really quickly, I picked up I started making my own websites in middle school as a hobby for me and my friends, and we were just playing around with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I did not know what I was doing. I would go in and break websites and then build them back up again. I didn't think I was smart enough to be in this field. I was brought up to think that I was bad at math. I was in AP everything else, but math was just the worst. When I was studying for the SATs, my tutor said, finally, after working through a bunch of problems and me coming up with these ways that we weren't necessarily taught out of a book, he told me, it's like, oh, you don't think the way math books teach. And that kind of changed how I thought about what it meant to be smart at something. Because, you're always going to have people that approach different topics and think, and it's intuitive to them, but that doesn't mean you can't be good at it. So I grew up in Georgia. Hi, Terrence. And I went to Florida State University. I got a bachelor's in art history. I loved every minute of it. I got to be a tour guide in Italy, which was amazing, but to do anything worthwhile in that field, you have to go for a master's at least, and I was burnt out. I kind of floated around. I ended up as an administrator at Johns Hopkins, which is how I found myself in Baltimore. I ended up helping a bunch of future doctors create websites for their thesis projects. And it was easily the most fun part of my job. And I decided to go for a boot camp because I could not sign up for any more years of school, but 3 to 4 months I could absolutely do. So what I always say to people with boot camps, it's not for everyone. So I had to do a lot of soul searching and be like, did I think I could do it? I had to ask what my learning style was. I needed, and I understand what this is going to sound like, but I needed in-person or more personal attention. I couldn't be in an anonymous space in like a class of 100. It had to be a smaller class for me because I needed to be able to bother the teacher and ask them as many questions as possible. And also I did a lot of research for boot camps around me. Luckily I had a lot of friends who had done the boot camp experience, and I asked them all a bunch of questions. What was your experience? How did you settle on your specific boot camp? Because there are a lot. And I think the best advice a friend gave me was look at their job placement stats. Any boot camp that says they'll find 100% of their students' jobs is lying. No one's that magic. But obviously look for a high number, and also look for boot camps that have specific programs to help you find a job. My boot camp was General Assembly in DC. For 3 months, I commuted to DC every day, but they specifically had a program after we graduated to help us find a job, where they provided career coaching and helped us build portfolios. And in fact, if you choose to go the boot camp route, whether it's through Mastermind, which Aaron's doing a really great thing, the most important thing a boot camp can help you do is create a portfolio. Because, yeah, you can say, I can find all the prime numbers in an array, but that's not a real life problem that a lot of you will face as programmers. But if you can show, it's like, even if it's stuff that already exists somewhere else, but you built a calculator in Python or Java or whatever, and can prove that you built it by showing, your Git history, that shows, you can start a project, you can finish a project, you can design a project, and that's the best thing you can do if you choose to do the bootcamp route, the school route or not. Just make things on the side, even when you are working at it, and yeah, just use your resources.
Excellent. Does anyone else? I know I have a little input on this. Does anyone else have any input on whether or not boot camps are a good idea or not, or on whether or not you think a boot camp is a good idea or not?
I'll jump in there. I haven't done a boot camp myself, so full disclosure, this is just my sort of what I picked up on from others and reading about them and so on. But my take is, if you're sort of just getting into the field or thinking about getting into the field, might not be the best entry point. It's a little risky because it's a huge commitment, both in terms of time and sometimes cost, and opportunity cost. Because while you're doing the boot camp, you're probably not doing other things. So you probably want to make sure that this is not just an idea that popped in your head one afternoon, and this is actually something that you're truly passionate about and you can, see yourself doing in a sustained way. How do you do that? Well, the good news is there's more resources to learn how to program and do this stuff on your own than probably any other field imaginable. So I would start doing self-learning, self-teaching for at least a few weeks to months. Do projects, build things. If you're doing that and months go by and you're actually still gaining momentum and feeling passionate and excited, that's the time to think, maybe I should go to a boot camp, right? Because now you've demonstrated that it's not just some idea that popped in your brain, right? And it's much less of a risk and more of just a calculated decision that you can make. So that would be my feedback of when the right time is to start considering a boot camp.
Yeah. I feel, I think that yes, we do run boot camps here. We're designing a bunch of boot camps. They're free. But I think that one, you should figure out how you learn best first. I think Nicole said it perfectly. I know I couldn't be in a class of 100. I know what I needed. I think that's what is first important. So I think you need to first identify how you learn best. Second, you need to figure out what kind of resources you can spare to allow this. So both time and money. I think if you have the time and the money and a boot camp fits what you're doing, I think you should do it. I think it's a reasonable thing to do if you've already confirmed that this is something that you want to do. I would take the time. There's tons of resources out there already to find out if this is something you might be interested in. So make sure you're interested in it first before you spend money. Just like if you were going to buy a car, just like if you were going to buy a house, do your research on it first. Make sure it's exactly what you want to do before you do that. And then besides that, after that, I say, if you're someone who is an autodidact or like someone who's good at teaching yourself, the resources are out there. I do think that the structure of a bootcamp is, again, very helpful. And I think you can utilize them as a tool to kind of get better. But I still think even going to a bootcamp, you kind of already have to have kind of the fire in you to really want to kind of get it done, to really want to learn it. It's not going to be, I go to this bootcamp and I'm going to walk out of the other side amazing. It's definitely going to take the work. So again, that's one of the biggest reasons why we're kind of running the boot camps now. It's kind of a safer place to really kind of dive in. If you want to dive all the way in, you can. If you want to test the waters, you can. Pretty risk free. But yeah, I think they absolutely can be a good idea. But I think there's some things you need to evaluate first before going into it. And don't expect to come out of the other side of pro either. I think that's one thing people think. I dropped 18,000. I'm going to come out the other side as a pro. I've been in the industry for years and I struggle daily. Again, as you've seen us do many times on stream, we still struggle. So just be cognizant of those things. I think that was a great question. And I think that leads into the next question asked by Veronis, but with no formal coding education, how do you kind of know when you're ready to start applying for coding jobs? And I kind of want to extend that a bit. I kind of want I kind of want whoever answers this to kind of just talk about what education they have, whether it be formal or you kind of just pick it up on your own. And just when do you think, where in the learning process do you think people should start applying to jobs? You want to take this one, Kevin? You'll start this one off?
Sure. So as I do web development. So I started my education at University of Connecticut, and I was there for computer science and engineering. And this was back in, I graduated high school in 2002. I thought at that time I would be, writing software for Windows and things like that. There wasn't this big mobile kind of take over smartphones and apps and everything. And I started out managing a support desk for this software company in Stanford. Not even doing development there, just kind of managed support desk, but I worked closely with the developers, actually learned a lot from them. At the time, they'd been developing longer than I'd been alive. And they were in this transition period where they were taking their desktop-based software, which was actually based off of, built using Access and Visual Basic. And it was back office software for convenience stores and gas stations. And basically you could, you're a convenience store owner, you can go in, change the pricing, track all of your fueling, your profit margins. It would integrate with QuickBooks. And they were in the process of taking that, converting it to a web-based platform. So you could be anywhere, you could own 25 stores. You can just, pick up your phone, tablet, computer, go in, change the price of a Snickers. Within the next 2 minutes, it's changed in all of your stores, set up specials and everything. And that was when I kind of started falling in love with web programming. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. Because I'd always kind of been into art, and I like kind of the marriage of you can write all this code in the back end, but then still kind of have fun and make things look visually appealing. And that's when I was like, all right, I really want to start. I had never written HTML, CSS, or anything. And I just started buying some books, started going online, resources, and it kind of just shifted my whole thing, because I was thinking like, all right, I was going to work with Visual Basic and, write desktop-based programs. And then it was just like this whole, even though I used the web a lot, I never thought about creating anything on it. And from there, yeah, like I didn't, obviously the programming and coding concepts, I picked up in college helped. But as far as, learning all these different JavaScript frameworks and just learning about servers and how they communicate and what happens, that was all, post-education. That was something I had an interest in. I just really loved learning about it. And actually the job that I have now that I've been at for about 8 or 9 years, I got that through a friend of mine kind of vouched for me pretty heavily, but I was honestly still learning CSS when I got that job. But it was one of those things where, kind of like I said before, a lot of it was about problem solving. I've always been good at that. That's always kind of been my passion. So like I said, you can learn, the language, whether it's a new JavaScript framework and a new CMS platform, since they said they come out, pretty much yearly. But those problem solving skills are what really kind of got me through it.
Yeah, and so Amy, I know that you come from a kind of a non-traditional software background. You mind answering that one? Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, go ahead and repeat the question before I start.
Yeah, so Veronis asked, with no formal coding education, kind of how do you know when you're ready to start kind of applying for jobs? But I also just wanted to extend that for you to kind of just let people know kind of what your either formal education or non-formal education, kind of how you learned tech.
Yeah, that's a great question. As far as applying to jobs, I'm not sure I'm gonna have an answer to that. But my background was very, very informal. I mostly learned like on the job. I like started out in like healthcare, and I wanted to do like a career change. So I went back to school, but I graduated in math. So I had like 2 programming classes, both are Java. And I feel like in those classes, it wasn't super practical stuff. It was mostly just like kind of getting familiar with some syntax, maybe like doing a couple of like small projects. And then that was it. I kind of like forgot about a lot of like the programming stuff. I really tried to focus on getting a job in math when I like graduated, but without there being a lot of like pure math degrees out there, like pure math jobs, a lot of mathematicians will just like intersperse into like the tech, I guess the whole tech like atmosphere. So it could kind of be like in anything. I ended up getting lucky and finding a company who was in Baltimore, just like a small tech company who was like starting a little apprenticeship, like a 3-month apprenticeship on the job learning thing. I got into that and I was there for 3 months and just got experience doing programming on lots of different projects, kind of just jumping in. Like, I think a lot of it was just getting used to the technologies that they're using, which is very overwhelming at first and still is on a regular basis. Like every time you see some new stuff, you have no idea what it is or like what it's even used for. So it just gets a little bit overwhelming, but you can very easily apply those same principles to whatever new thing you're looking at. So once you get like that sort of basic, like everyone else is saying, that basic like sort of problem solving skill set, you can sort of jump into different technologies, different programming languages, and sort of figure it out from there. And I for myself just learned mostly on the job. So honestly, I don't have a great answer for when it's like an obvious time to start applying for jobs, but I do think that, I mean, it's kind of also a numbers game. So getting familiar with some programming as much as you can, know whatever you can get exposed to, and just apply. Like, I mean, apply everywhere, apply as much as you can. The more like you get exposure to stuff, you'll also get exposed to like interviews. You'll have a better idea of, I mean, as much as interviews suck, you'll have a better idea of like what people are looking for, what kind of like skill sets they want. Questions that they'll ask might help to like lead you in a direction to say like, okay, well maybe I should go look this thing up and just like learn anything about it, even if it's like a small thing. But I definitely feel like exposure is like a big thing. Just get exposed to stuff so it doesn't feel so overwhelming when you're like, people are throwing around like terms and like random acronyms and you have no idea what anyone's talking about, because there's a lot of that. So just like exposure, and I don't know. I don't know if I have a better answer than that, but.
No, that's perfect. I think those were both two great answers. Does anyone else want to tip the hat in on this one? Cool. So let's. I think it's time to hear a little more about someone else's background. Corey, would you like to give us a little rundown of your background?
Sure. So again, I'm a red team pen tester. Basically, I went to school at Towson University. I did computer information systems back in 2009 through 2013. I, after that, actually became a Linux system administrator for Lockheed Martin up at Aberdeen. So I heard T-Bell mention Aberdeen. I know I was up there for a little while.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go. And then after that, I got hired into a certain government organization where I did a lot of analyst work for them. And that was a lot of like active, being on targets and working against certain organizations. And then after that, I did some teaching for a little while. I've had a bunch of jobs in the last like 5.5 years or so. So, and then now I'm back to red teaming for a private company. So it's been a wild ride.
Awesome. Excellent. Okay, cool. Thank you for that. So we have, and I guess this also kind of floats into kind of where, again, COVID-19 is shaking up the world. So we have a couple questions here specifically about freelancing. So UK Webboy asks, have any of you been doing any freelance work? If so, what sites do you use and how do you find your clients? Anyone?
So, Aaron, I'll try to answer that a little bit. Is that I've always had something on the side because I've really been into like the scientific development. So I've tried to patch in, go find universities or research groups that are doing interesting work, and just ask like, what kind of what are you lacking? Or I see your website look kind of shitty, or look, I'm interested in the kind of research you're doing. And often they're so hurting for people that if you can prove some sort of competency, you might not get paid much, but you can come on and start helping solve very interesting problems. So I would definitely say check out academia, check out research you're into.
Yeah, I tried to do freelancing stuff for a little while, and I don't know, I don't think two things. One, I was a little too lazy to have to write a proposal for every single thing that I was trying to get. Like I had a generic template, but it was super hard. I was using Upwork, or I think it was something else before, and became Upwork or something else. And oh man, it was hard. I never got a single job through there, and I dropped a bunch of money to not a bunch of money, but I spent some money to get more little credits so that I could apply to more jobs, but that didn't work. I have had some luck off of Craigslist, to be honest, for smaller things. Really? People on Craigslist aren't usually looking for the best, most reliable infrastructure ever, so you're not going to get cool work like that. But if you want someone to do some WordPress work or something like that, small web development projects and things, there's a lot of that on Craigslist as well. But that's all I got. I've never done much freelancing work. And then there was another question from Nove Dies. Was for those who freelance, how did you get you started freelancing as a developer? But it doesn't sound like we have any freelancers, so I am very sorry. What's up, Steven? Welcome. I didn't boot you, I promise. I didn't kick you out. How you doing?
I did.
Sorry, go ahead, Nicole.
Steven. But I wanted to answer. I did a few freelancing jobs before I did my boot camp, and it actually helped me decide that I wanted to do my boot camp. But I got them through friends and networking and word of mouth. I'm someone that went to meetups and met people, and they weren't looking for the best and the brightest. They were looking, hey, can you help me make this email not look sucky? And can you help me add content to my website? And it was just very small jobs like that, and it was stuff that I couldn't live off of in the beginning. But especially if you're beginning, you're not going to get that first big contract, but it's going to take, this is an industry that really respects hustling and really respects, you showing up and doing the work for it. And just also, if you can get word of mouth, just say, I really had a great experience with Aaron. That alone will get you in so many doors. So it's whether or not you're willing to do that kind of legwork to make freelancing work for you, or if you're lucky enough to get a freelance gig that wants you around for a good amount of time for you to build up those skills.
Excellent, thank you.
I agree with what Nicole said, and that actually I think you tweeted this out one day, Aaron, that your network is your net worth.
Mm-hmm.
And
I always thought that was BS, but now I no longer feel that way.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like I do, I'm involved in a lot of young professional networking groups, and I like talking to people, kind of, knowing what they do, because you never know when you will need someone for a job, and a lot of people just reach out to me either for my skills or like, oh, hey, do you know a Java developer, someone who does data analytics, and I get, I don't actively seek freelance work, but I end up getting jobs, and I feel your pain, Aaron, and going through the process of doing the proposals and anything. Honestly, all the freelance work I do now is generally someone else did that, and they're like, hey, I need someone to code this for me, or I need a website, and I'm like, sure, how much you need me to do, here's how much money I need, and then kind of leave it at that. And they do all the work of dealing with the client. And as I said, I usually, not something I actively seek out, but it always comes up. I have a couple of those going on right now.
Awesome. So now that Steven's on, I feel like you're here to challenge me to a game or something, to be 100% honest, but welcome. Want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to everyone. So just kind of give your name, what you currently do. You can say where you work if you want or not, and then maybe just something fun about yourself, something you like to do, or Just something so that people can get to know you a bit.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I had technical difficulties on the the call.
All good.
But yeah, I right. So currently, I work at AWS on Glacier, the S3 service. I work as a systems development engineer, which is the same thing as an SRE or a DevOps engineer from Amazon's perspective. And what I like to do in my free time, I like swing dancing and music. Anything with music is pretty cool. So
what are the odds that we would have two swing dancers on the same panel? Crazy. Pretty nuts. Definitely pretty nuts. That's wild. Okay, cool. I also want to let so I think Sam and Maurice, I think you guys have kind of hard stops. So I would like you to kind of get into Sam. Do you mind getting into your background a little bit?
Yeah, sure, no problem. I'll give the quick version. Kind of actually started. I graduated not with a computer science degree. Studied economics for undergrad. Did like application and tech support, and kind of glorified picking up phones because I was, not yet in the eyes of employers qualified to do the real, software development. Kind of convinced through some networking, convinced and some luck, some sheer luck, kind of convinced one of the consulting firms, Accenture, to hire me on. I was working for a DoD contractor doing some data management work, basically archiving huge amounts of data out of these big, huge data warehouses. Managed to, again, convince another employer to take a chance at me. And that's a lot of what this is. It's just convincing different companies to say, this is a calculated risk, but we think it's got an odd of, a good shot at success. When I went to work for for an FBI project on one of their big case management applications, I was obviously doing some cool stuff, really important mission, stopping crime and counterterrorism and all that stuff. We were doing a data migration, which doesn't sound exciting, but it was really complex and really pretty fascinating. It was eye-opening in that it sort of helped me realize that something that might on the surface sound kind of bland, migrating data, can require like layers and layers of understanding. Like, we had to understand all the business rules of these two different systems and where they aligned and misaligned and how the data could be migrated from one to the other, and massive whole performance concerns and all kinds of other things. But it was a really, really interesting project. Moved to another contractor doing work with FBI, building like a strategy management application. So sort of like applying like, principles of corporate strategy, but sort of helping them be a little more data driven in their methodologies for measuring their performance and how well they're actually achieving their mission. Finally, I moved to another company in the intelligence community, building like a platform for it's called intelligence mission data, basically gathering different types of intelligence requirements, making them easily discoverable, searchable, helping the taxpayer make sure that their money is being spent wisely with regards to defense and so on. And then finally, I'm still on that project I just mentioned, but I recently started a company called Sabre. I figured after this journey, this about 10-year long journey, I figured the common thread between all the different projects was data. Always working with data and pulling insights out of data and really tying that back to the sort of human aspect of decision making, making really good decisions. And that's like kind of one of the superpowers I think that we get with software development. It's not every project is necessarily data driven, but done right, analytics and data, and of course machine learning and some of the more advanced technologies allow us to make, when used properly, can sort of supercharge organizations to make really, really qualitatively better decisions. So that's sort of like our mission right now, and we're still in a very early phase where we're trying to grow and figure out how to grow and grow in a healthy way and everything. But that's sort of how I got from there to here in a nutshell.
Awesome, that's dope. And I know that data talk, I saw Maurice snapping over here. I know that that got him going. You have a fan over here. So Maurice, you want to give us a little insight into your background?
All right. So, to be honest, I wasn't always interested in computers and actually hated technology going into college. Just and doesn't techno geek at all. If it wasn't a stand-up arcade, like something I had to put a quarter in, I wasn't into it. And so I don't know, something happened. I started taking some classes, whatnot, and started getting into kind of the computer's like, I don't know, like the most advanced thing we've ever made. So it's like almost any problem you have, you can apply to this machine, you know, or you can have this machine try to solve. So started getting into it in that way. So got my undergrad and graduate, my master's in computer science, and have always been into trying to solve just disparate problems, other people's like biological problems, agricultural problems. I hope to meet a geologist soon. That way I can solve geological problems, you know. It's always fun so you can learn different things. But got my master's, did some work doing machine vision, trying to make a commercial app with that. It was sold in 100 stores or 500 stores all across the United States. I think it was still up in production until last year. But and then kind of hop jobs, and it was just kind of just database and front end work, and it didn't sing to me. So I had some people over in this area, and they were like, hey, cyber's where it's at. It's a really difficult problem. So hopped up here, got in with a good group of folks, a company that really kind of cared. I don't know if you guys have heard of Mantech or not. Fantastic company if you ever get a chance. They had a great training program. If you can, take their test and get in, just do it. You can go right to their website and find it, because they'll take you, train you, and put you in a really high-paying job. So that was a great program they put me through. Stayed there for about 5 years, but then you know, all this data science talk started to happen. I really wanted to hop out and get back into scientific development. So that's the first time I started talking with Fearless and started working with the research group. And that was just really interesting. I mean, everything you learn in school, you're essentially doing the exact opposite of how you should be using the systems, because no system is set up to work this problem. You know, no system is set up to aggregate data this big, or to, you know, process this model on this data. Like, nothing's set up to do it. So you've got to kind of, you know, work with what you have. So did that for another 2 or 3 years in different research labs. And then last year we finally got a great contract helping the customer solve this kind of problem. One of our customers solved the same type of problem as how to kind of make sense of all the data that they have. So that's what I'm doing with Fearless right now. And that's who I'm with. But and that's what I'll probably be doing in the near future. So
dope. It's always so excited to hear everyone's kind of journey and kind of what they like to do before this. You kind of just think, you meet everyone and you're like, they liked this. Like they've always been into tech and they studied this. Cause like Maurice, everyone on the call who knows Maurice is like the smartest guy any of us know. So I don't think he feels that way, but like no one's like, he's like the smartest person we know. So I don't know. It's interesting to hear that he wasn't even really into tech at first. So thank you for that. So this is a good question. I think it's a little tough. I don't mean to throw you away, Jim, but I'm going to throw you. Can you define what problem solving is in the coding world, and kind of what some things you may be able to do to kind of get better at practicing it? This is a good one. I like this one, but it might be kind of tough.
I think it can be a variety of things. Like, so there's like algorithms, like, and you can practice stuff like that on. Like, I just started looking at this site called LeetCode, and like, you have like, if you have any like formal education, you've done like algorithms classes, but there's also like, I feel like most of coding is normally not done like trying to figure out algorithms. It's a lot of like debugging and like just trying to figure out like weird like just things you like, why is it acting this way, and like trying to trace that back to just because sometimes like I feel like computers never work quite as you expect, and then
never
just like really dig into like you think you know, and then you have no idea. It's just always like the last place you. I feel like if you had the problem in the first place, it's because you weren't looking at something, you know. Yeah. So it's often good to get a fresh like pair of eyes too. Like if you're stuck, normally like ask somebody else to look at it, because often even just describing the problem to the person, you will just I'll be like, oh my god, like that was, I already know this. I don't know, like it's weird how problem solving works as a developer. Like it just, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm curious, how long have you been programming?
About 6 years professionally.
Okay.
I've been doing it like since I was a teenager.
See, all you people that have been doing this since teenager, I feel like I am battling LeBron James type athletes.
Yeah, right.
The coding space. Like, who starts when they're 8? Like, what is this?
Okay, Mr. Computer Science degree.
Yeah, right.
on,
Mr. Computer Science degree.
Bro.
That's actually a great question. How many people here have CS degrees or IS degrees? CS or IS degrees?
Well, first of all, I don't know. Well, back up. I have 3.5. Did I tell you the story?
That means he has 2 degrees. That's what it sounds like.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Well, answer the question, then I'll tell you the story.
No, yeah. So how many people here have CS degrees?
I do.
2. So just 2?
And Corey does too.
I have an IS, not CS.
Oh, CS or IS degree. 3 people. Okay. How many people have degrees but not in CS or IS? 1, 2. Okay, and how many people have no degree at all?
2. I don't have a degree.
Perfect. No, I just wanted to just. I think it's important to kind of show that there are tons of paths in. People always ask me, "Oh, do I need school?" And I hear people tell people, "No, absolutely not." And stuff. I think
make it so much easier. So it took me forever to finish school. I went very part-time for like 10 years, and I would tell you 98% of a degree still makes it so tough to get a job. I don't know how you guys got like developer jobs with that degree. Like,
yeah,
it really was such a struggle to find anything. Like I got into like the tech field a little bit, but development specifically, I felt like people would,
I definitely think it was the case. I think it's still that case in like in the government space, a lot of the contractor space, because the GSA schedules and things they were kind of require those things. And we do live in an area where that, like, there are a lot of the jobs are that. But I don't know. I haven't been asked about my education. And like I've been on a lot of interviews, and very few of them, there's so few of them that ask me specifically about my education that I can remember the exact companies. And they were usually larger companies like Oracle and a couple other people, but I almost never got asked.
And would you say that was like when they asked you, it was earlier in your career as opposed to later?
Yes. I haven't been. I mean, but I haven't been I interviewed a lot earlier in my career, and now not so much. So that might be part of it as well.
That could be it too. Yeah.
Nicole, I think you were saying something.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm a big believer. It's more of a portfolio type of deal. Like, if you can build stuff again, no one has to be using it. It doesn't have to be like a real life, like, look at this thing that like 1,000 people are using. Part of the networking I did, I actually connected with Maurice at a meetup, and he brought me on to a open source project that never got off the ground, but I got to work with him and a few other developers, and that gave me experience. It gave me connections. It gave me a story that I could tell, so that if someone did ask about my background, I never brought up my I did bring up my background as a non-programmer, but then I was like, but look at all this other stuff I've done. Even the stuff that never got off the ground, there's still a GitHub repo that never had an actual product, but I contributed to it in a meaningful way.
I think even contributions to things that maybe may not seem technical, like even if you're contributing a markdown file to some open source project, it makes a difference, and it shows a hunger to learn. And as long as you're always striving to show that you're willing to learn, you're willing to read and willing to study, and you show a passion for software development, it'll become very apparent through your interviews and even on your resume.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Cool. All right, we got a bunch. We have a lot of questions now, so we're gonna move them a little bit quicker. Is anyone, and again, if you don't want to answer this, no problem, but is anyone going through the recruitment process currently? If so, how do you make yourself? D Flair asked this. How do I make myself more appealing than my colleagues. So I guess this can also be answered even if you're not going through the process. But how do you make yourself, I guess, how do you make yourself more appealing through the interview process? What can you kind of do to kind of stand out a little bit? Anyone want to tackle that?
You mind if I take it, Aaron?
Absolutely.
So I'm not going to talk about resume. I'm sure there's probably some resume folks on here that can help with that. But in your interview, I want to hear stories about the problems that you solved. So if you said, hey, look, I know tech X, Y, and Z, or I worked for this company, I want to know the story behind what you did. Hey, I set up this system, I used this language, I did X, Y, and Z, and this didn't work, so we changed it out. I want to hear like that background, you know, what you had to choose, why you made the decision. And that kind of helps prove out what you actually did. So when you think about interviewing and you think about everything on your resume, try to think about a story that you could tell if somebody asked you about.
Yeah,
advice.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
I've just committed that to the back of my brain.
That's amazing.
That's good stuff. Anyone else?
I'll just jump in from what he said. One of the things I've always gotten whenever I've either been in an interview or had to go to an interview to interview somebody is whenever I see something on your resume, I always want to be like, okay, if it's on there, I'm going to ask you about it and I want to know something about that. Like, don't just put something on there because you thought it was nice. I'm going to ask you like, oh, you know, like Python, like, okay, cool. Like if y'all were going to do X, Y, Z in Python, how would you do it? Like just a quick, you don't have to be precise, but just at least talk about it, you know, talk to me intelligibly about anything you put on there.
Yeah, we just did the past actual 2 streams were specifically about conquering the interview process. And we talked a lot about that, like learning how to speak about what you know. It's an art in itself. It's something that you do need to practice to be able to do. But it's super important. I don't need to know that you know everything about it. If you put it on your resume and I you know, just ask about it, if you can just speak confidently a couple sentences about it, and I can see that clearly you've at least touched it, it's kind of what I'm looking for. Everyone's not looking for you to know every single little thing, but you should be able to talk, to speak about the things that are on your resume. Again, it's tough, something you do have to practice, but I think that's really, really good advice. Okay. Anything else there? All right. Let's move on to, here's a long one, and I'm excited about this one, and I'm skipping around, so if someone's monitoring the order of questions, I'm just kind of skipping around, but I do have them all listed here. They're all here.
Yeah.
But Gamer de Drax, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it, 2 X's at the end, currently going down the cloud architect route. Any advice for someone currently going this route? Currently have AWS Cloud Practitioner, and I'm almost done the AWS Solutions Architect Associate. Also, thank you very much, everyone who's on for your help, stories, and advice. But does anyone have any experience in that area? Does anyone? I do. That's why I was excited to ask this, to answer this one. But does anyone have any insight into kind of someone trying to go down the cloud solutions architect route? Nope. I mean, not even the person
Aaron,
from AWS.
Aaron, I feel like you would be the most qualified.
I mean, no, I definitely, I do want to give some insight into this, for sure. But Steven, do you have anything? You don't have to have anything. You just work at AWS, so it would just, it feels right.
Sounds dope.
Yeah.
I would say, I haven't seen, I don't know whether or not my peers have certificates, but I have seen, I worked previously at Blizzard Gaming, and they very much did appreciate if you had AWS certificate. In fact, there's an initiative to get people on AWS certification, but certifications is not the be all end all. You have to prove that you can problem solve with the technology stacks. A lot of certifications, the more advanced ones get more into this, but talk more about like system architecture and how you would architect in the cloud, as opposed to a service does this. It's more of how would you use this service to construct and you have some sort of problem, if that makes sense. So definitely the certificates help, but it's worth not just memorizing services, but knowing how to use them in certain architectures.
100%. I definitely agree with this. This is always a really tough one, because one, the cloud is, it's so interesting, such an interesting space. There's a ton to learn. Like there's a ton of services and a ton of things to learn, and it's definitely can be overwhelming. I personally think the best way to learn cloud right now. When you are studying for those certifications, again, just like Steven said, yes, I think you can gain that knowledge, but the problem is you don't. It's hard to get the context around what problems those things solve, and that's what people are going to interview on. That's what people are going to pay you for. Is kind of being able to solve problems using those tools and things that you're learning about in the certification process. I do think that the AWS exams do a good job of tying in the reason why you would choose a service. So it does help, but it's, again, hard to tie it back into context. I think as you're going through the solutions architect process, you should also be like diving into setting these things up on systems, actually. It's very interesting for the people who are going into the cloud things now, because I'm from the old school sysadmin days. It's interesting watching the transformation from there to the cloud. So I have a lot more context around why this service is a good thing, because I've done things kind of in the old way, and I've been working with people who are trying to get into the cloud, and it's super interesting because a lot of stuff still is done the old way in a non-cloud native type architecture. That when they have to solve a problem coming from the old way of doing things to the cloud, it's kind of hard to contextualize that because it doesn't make any sense. Like, it really doesn't make any sense. So I think kind of gaining some context of manually getting into a system, like learning how a site is hosted manually first with a load, like learning how to set up a load balancer manually and understanding how that kind of works, and things like that I think are surprisingly helpful throughout that process. But other than that, I think all of the resources out there, I think A Cloud Guru is an excellent resource for learning the cloud. If you have a little bit of extra money to spend, it's fairly reasonable. They keep you up to date all the time with the services, but also don't get overwhelmed trying to memorize everything. Again, focus on the problems these different services solve. I think AWS has 127 services or something crazy, 172 services. You're not going to memorize all of them, but there's categories of services. Kind of focus on what problems those things solve, and that'll help. But it is a lot of stuff. Don't get frustrated. Like I said, I've been dealing with this stuff for forever, and I still deal with AWS issues I have no idea what to do with every single day. So yeah, just keep going, and don't expect to know all of it. I think that's a big problem. And the solutions architect exams are hard. They're pretty difficult, so don't sweat it if you don't do well. I got basically 100% on the developer exam and immediately tried to take the solutions architect originally, and I failed it immediately. And I'm a technical lead, so there you go. But I haven't tried to take it in a while. I know they've changed a lot, but I definitely wanted to hop onto that one just because that's my passion. I love the cloud. So thank you.
Aaron. A Cloud Guru versus Linux Academy.
See, you just come on, man. You said
I'm just saying.
Did someone ask that?
Yeah, I'm just reading that.
Okay, all right. Someone asked that. Well, so I think Linux Academy is great, but A Cloud Guru is because now they're the same. A Cloud Guru actually purchased Linux Academy, but A Cloud Guru is, I think, a superior platform for focusing on the information. Only because I think Linux Academy has so much stuff. It's hard to know exactly where to go. I think the quality isn't quite as good on the content just because they just try to provide a lot of it. Like they try to provide all the DevOps tools and all the cloud and all everything. But yeah, but now they're one and the same. So I guess you get one, you get both. So you can use them both. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So, Go React JS has a question specifically for you, Steven. For the guy who works at Amazon, any advice for conquering any all-day or multi-day interviews? This is a great question. We'll start with Steven, but if anyone else has any answers for this, I'd love to hear it because this was a hot topic last night.
It's been mentioned before, but definitely don't be embarrassed if you don't know the answer to a question, and don't try and lie about knowing or guess. Just being true and admitting that you don't know something is a skill in itself. It shows like humility of sorts, which means you're easier to work with. I'd say pace yourself as well. Multi-day interviews typically, or very long interviews, they typically have different facilitators who each specialize in that particular set of knowledge, and so they can probe deep just to see how deep your knowledge is. They're not necessarily trying to catch you wrong, they're just trying to see how deep your understanding is of certain concepts. I'd say pace yourself and don't be embarrassed if like you feel like you missed one interview. That competency may be shallow, but if you have a deep competency in something else, it's completely fine. And at the end of the day, they're just looking for people that are, easy to work with.
Yeah.
Also, disclaimer: my views are my own and do not reflect Amazon's interviews at all.
Respect. You got to throw that out there. Anyone else? Any experience in multi-day interviews, or how you feel? Even if not, how do you feel about them, or
how do y'all feel about the multi-day interviews? That's a more interesting question.
It's always tough. Just drink a lot of water. That way, you got a chance to use the restroom too. Get your thoughts back together. Get back in.
Oh, that's
always
good.
Ask for water. Drink a ton of water.
Make sure that you are okay with repeating yourself, because you're going to repeat yourself a lot to these different people that keep coming up.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I've been through a few multi-day interviews, and I felt very, I don't know. So fortunately, I think they're great when they go well the whole time. I didn't mind them until I hit my first one, where it went great for the first. It was like it was in the fourth round. It was 4 rounds, and I think I told this, it was with Palantir, and it went great up until that 4th round, and then they wanted me to basically it was like, yeah, we're going to give you a 5th round, but this 5th round is kind of like a redo of the 4th round. I was like, yeah, I'm good. Like, this is, it was fun, but this is too much now. So it's pretty interesting. Like, it can be, after going through one weird experience like that, I was really averse to accepting, a multi-day interview like that again. But yeah, they're out there. So I always think it's interesting.
Also, not understated, get plenty of sleep, rest, and don't try to cram the night before, because it does not work from experience.
So Block 7, no, I did not wear the same suit for the multi-day interview.
Good question.
I didn't wear a suit at all, first off.
Let me ask you something.
I did wear different clothes.
So what if, you applied to this job and it was a job that you really wanted, and they asked you to come in for an interview, but they wanted you to wear a suit? Where do you go from there, Aaron?
If I really wanted the job,
anybody actually,
I'm wearing a suit. I'll just get extra fresh and go in.
Dude, I know some devs who are like, no, I ain't wearing no suit.
I mean, if everyone's wearing a suit in the building, I probably would be thinking twice about it. Just because, again, I've been fortunate enough to work at places where it's not super important, and I've gotten pretty comfortable. But I'm not against suits. In some places, it makes sense. Some places it makes sense. Right now I wouldn't, because then I would have to buy more suits, and I'm pretty out on spending money on things I don't want to spend money on.
How many days is this multi-suit interview?
That's a good question. I mean, like I said, mine was 4. I had made it 4, basically 4. The first 2 times were like 2-hour interviews, and then the 3rd one was like I was on site for like a 6-hour interview, and the second one was like a 6-hour interview. So I don't know.
Every hour, new suit.
Every hour, new suit. Just I need to go to the restroom and come back with a new suit.
My wardrobe.
At least change the tie. Change the tie.
Right.
I love it.
I'll say that.
That is, at least change the tie. I love that. That makes sense. I mean,
see if they notice. That's their test.
That is their test, and that should be the first question you ask them when they say, "Hey, do you have any questions for us?" Yes. Did you notice how many times? Like, I need to make sure you know how many times I changed my clothes. If you didn't notice, then you're not for me. Now, I love it. I love it. Okay, so who hasn't given their background update yet? We want to make sure we get everyone in here. I think Jim. I think it's just Jim and Steven. Corey, did you give? Yeah, Corey, you gave yours. I think it's just Jim and Steven are left to just Jim. You want to walk us through like what you've done, just kind of your career path. Walk us through your resume.
I was very part-time getting my degree, and before I completed, I became a copier tech, and that's when I finished it. Then once I finished it, I found it much easier to get a job as a developer, and the job I wanted most, I got an offer from the government, Department of Defense, and if you get an offer, just keep looking also, because it took 2 years before it actually went through.
Wow.
Great advice, first off.
So yeah. I did that for a while. So in there, it was not I didn't end up in a very good organization, and I had some like we worked with some interesting technologies. Like I programmed in Scala, Java, and we did like stuff with Spark, and we had like impressive computer systems and stuff like that. But like there wasn't a lot of work in this org, so I ended up getting kind of like frustrated, and then I just left. And then I don't know. I've been on 4 different jobs now. I like moving around. It's also stressful, like starting a new job. But I feel like in your first year at a place, like you learn so much, like especially those first 6 months, like it's just like a flood of information coming in, and that aspect of it I really enjoy.
Awesome.
And just like learning new systems, new frameworks, stuff like that.
Yeah, I always like to hear about people's first year in the job. Like it is a flood.
And so like one thing that really got me, so like before I started a job, I was so like nervous, like are my coding skills gonna be up to like par, and like all this stuff about like coding, but like coding I was fine. It was everything else. Like I had to learn so many different, like not only like the stuff that like what your project did and like context of everything and how systems work together, but like even just like dependencies and like problems with Git. Like if you use Git and it's just you know, like you're not gonna have problems that you encounter.
You think you're a pro. Like when you're using Git by yourself, when you're learning Git, you know 4 commands, and you're like, you know, git add, git commit, git push. I know it all. And yes, you are 100%. That's perfect. Yeah, I think that's what was so interesting about my very first like tech job, was that the issues that I ran into, yes, tech was like the coding and the really technical stuff was a problem, but it was just like the processes and like, oh, like you're telling me there's this tech thing, but like it's on like 4 different systems. I gotta like log into this thing, but like, oh, you're doing it right, but you're in the wrong place because you need to do. I'm like, I can't keep up. Like, it was very difficult to keep up. Yeah.
A lot of times, I think it's just the hidden knowledge. The actual job itself is fine. Technically, you got to do all the things. It's that hidden knowledge that's not written down anywhere that nobody's.
I call that tribal knowledge.
Yeah,
it's the tribal knowledge that people pass down by word of mouth.
Lack of documentation.
Lack of documentation is going to be a thing for your whole career. Anyone who's out there and you're used to learning and reading good documentation, whenever you get to jobs, documentation will be sparse. I promise you, it'll be sparse.
Only one team out of 4 I've been on that like properly documented really anything.
Yeah. Wow. And I understand how it happens. Like now that I've been on enough teams, I didn't understand it. I honestly didn't understand a lot of things that were like weird in the tech industry, because I've worked at a lot of different places, but I had never come in at the beginning of a project. This is the first project that I've ever been on since the beginning, and like you get to see everything from start to finish, and it's like yes, there were so many places where things could have been improved, but it was like, if you were only there at the time, like if you were there at the time, you would understand. It is so hard. It's so weird. So now it's like, man, I'm always super impressed by like thinking back to where like how much farther along some projects were than others. Like when I think back to other things that I've done, it's like, man, someone was on the ball for a long time, and then I was frustrated about this little thing. Like that wasn't a big thing at all. Like we had almost everything there. So that's always interesting as well. All right, so 924, we've talked about it a lot. Just gonna take a little stretch, everyone. Just stretch it out just a little bit. You know, we just.
Oh, you're showing the guns, bro. No, that's a flex.
No, never a flex.
That's
never
a flex.
Come on,
gym,
I'm not
he was flexing, bro.
I have not worked out in 2 weeks, and I've lost 2 pounds, and it feels great because. It's because we can't go to the Kabul. Like that's why.
I am missing that.
That's why I'm losing weight.
I'm missing it.
Like that's why I'm losing weight. So it feels.
I can't wait to gain those 2 pounds back.
I'm not good. I'm never gonna. If I keep losing weight, that'll show me that I never have to work out again, and then I'll get time back in my day. I'll never be sweaty or tired. It sounds like efficiency to me. So I'll keep cooking. I don't mind cooking when I'm at home and when I have food. Like we purchased way too much food. I don't know. I know times are crazy, but like it was just too much. So we're like
It's never
cooking
too
things.
much
Things are
food.
we're trying to like things are going bad, and it's like no, like we
Oh,
made a
man.
mistake. I know.
Yeah, you kept going to the grocery store, bro. I was like, all right.
I did.
I didn't judge you.
I did because in my mind, like when I looked in the fridge, I was like, "There's not enough. There's just like it's not full, so it's not enough." But that was a mistake. Things get
in terms of apocalypse.
yeah, like I'm thinking. I mean, I don't mean to scare anyone, but I'm thinking Walking Dead. Like
God.
I'm sorry, it's just how
Dude,
my mind
Amy and her
works.
husband throws axes and stuff like that, so we're good.
We talked about this. I told Amy, me and Ashley were coming we were gonna find them so they could keep us safe because you guys were great at throwing axes.
With us too.
Well,
So between all of us, we'll
There's three of us. Don't worry.
There
well,
we go.
just know that
Got like
I feel
15
safe.
axes in the corner over there.
I will carry the
I'm not
food
made
in
for
my
the
backpack.
apocalypse.
And
I'm
even
not made for the apocalypse. I'm just gonna cut my losses. Like,
No, don't get out the game. No.
I agree. The only thing that I will be good at, and this is sad, but is holding the door. I don't know if we got any Game of Thrones. I'll hold the door. I'm good at. I've been training my whole life to hold the door. Okay, I'm not fighting. I'm not doing any of that. I will hold the door. I'm just. You got to know who you are. You have to
you're
know.
gonna have a really crappy apocalypse name.
Well, that's. I'm gonna have a. Well, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I've learned to live with that. I don't know. I'm okay. Okay. There are a lot of questions. We'll get through as many as we can, but and the ones we don't get through, maybe we'll try to pop into a Slack channel one day and just see if we can get them answered for people. But
Hey,
all right,
hey,
Southern Coffee
sorry.
Slack channel's a great channel. So
you're right. We'll definitely promote that. What's up, Maurice?
Hey, I've got to go and take off, man. It's my bedtime. It's about 9:30. So
100%.
I will.
Get out of here. Thank you so much for your time,
Appreciate you,
man.
brother.
I'll definitely treat
Yeah,
everyone
thanks,
to
guys.
lunch when we can
you.
see each other again. I
Not
appreciate it.
necessary. My pleasure. You guys be well.
You too, man. Okay. So
Here,
with
I'll take you up on that lunch offer.
yeah, 1,000%. You know, I got you, man. So for again, from some of the things we just talked about, UK Webboy asked again, do we think the lockdown will make for more remote IT work? And I also want to extend that question a little bit as well. I think there's a misconception to everyone who doesn't work remotely that working remotely is the most amazing thing in the world. I've had both experiences, so I want to hear, one, do you think that this situation will cause more remote IT work? And two, what are your feelings about remote IT work?
Specifically IT work or anything?
Yeah,
like-
develop. I mean, I think.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Anyone?
So I'll give my 2 cents. I have not ever been able to work remote, but I do think that this type of event will cause more remote work for at least a short time, as people are kind of figuring out what they're going to do, how they're going to make everyone work from home easier and be productive still. But I also think that when it comes to working from home, you have to schedule out that time for yourself to be at work and then be at home. And it's always better if you can have like a space at home that is like that's your workspace. You do your work there, you don't do anything else over there, and then you move over and do, this is my relaxed space, this is my home, this is everything else. Because I think a lot of times you can actually overwork yourself at home if you're not careful.
Agreed. Anyone else?
I think this will make sure people are more remote ready, even if it doesn't make their job entirely remote. But just a lot of my friends, and not even mostly in IT, they're just not prepared. Like some people that work for, Boy works for the state of New Jersey, and very few people are actually set up to work remotely. Everything is still paper. They've got to mail things. They have to print things. They can't get access to the machines, so they forced everyone to go home, but they can't really do much.
Yeah.
So I think this will hopefully, whether it was budget or time or whatever reason they weren't ready for a situation like this, I think this will show them that this is now a necessity, something that will cost them more in the long run.
Yeah.
I used to work for a very small business that was the saying there was security trumps all, which I don't personally believe in. I believe security is important, but they didn't have any remote VPN access at all. And now they are dead in the water with not being able to work. And so it shows that you have to balance security with functionality, and empowering your engineers to work remotely makes you more fault tolerant to these kinds of things. Because who would have thought that this, like a month ago, everything was fine, or probably over a month ago now, but like within the span of a few weeks, things changed very, very quickly. And being able to adapt to that speaks a lot to the engineering culture and team that you build at your company.
I think more than just the IT world is going to realize that they can work remotely and they can make allowances for people with disabilities and people that can't always make it into an office. That being said, it's very different when you can't leave your house, period, versus working remote and being able to go work in a cafe or go to a library or have an office as an option, if not a requirement. I like going into my office. I like talking to people. I was the same in college. If I found myself getting stuck at work, stuck in whatever I was working on, I would go to the library or I'd be around people who were working, and that would help me focus. Again, it's knowing who you are and how best you work. As Corey was saying, have your hours, knowing when to turn off, and that goes not just, start of your day and end of the day, but if you're sick, it's harder to be like, oh, I can take this time off because you feel guilty because your workstation's right there, but then you might not be getting the rest you need. And also there's something to be said for that in-person communication where you can read people a lot better, and waiting for that awkward Zoom pause to end. Yep. Someone, dear God, just end that pause. But it's possible. I know people who love it. But again, I think it's very different now because I can't leave my house anytime I want. And I think that makes a really huge difference.
Is your code suffering at all?
What?
Is your code suffering from not being able to leave the house, maybe? No?
The PI planning really hurt me. 8-hour Zooms are terrible.
Yeah.
I think. But I don't think my code's suffering because I work on a team that was mostly remote anyway.
That's right.
Because I worked for Fearless, which is in person, but we're subcontracted to a team that is completely remote. So this was not a weird shift for me.
Yeah, fair enough.
I remember thinking I had never worked when I first started my career. My first 3 jobs, I never worked remotely. I worked at 2 web hosting companies, and then I actually worked at ZeniMax Media. I actually worked on the launch of Elder Scrolls Online, and so I had actually never worked remotely at any of those places. And then my very next job was a fully remote job, and I remember thinking when I got it, I was making I got a $15K raise, and I was working from home. I was like, this is the best thing that had ever happened to anybody. And this is going to be amazing. And I can't, this is, someone pinch me. And it was the most daunting job. Because one, I didn't have, this was right after school. It wasn't long after school. And I had actually moved. I was out living with some friends, and then I actually moved back home to start saving some money. And so I didn't have really my own space to do this. So I kind of worked where I slept, and it got to a point where I hated being in the house. And so I used to leave. I mean, it really propelled me in my career, because I would leave the house, I would work all day, leave the house just to get out of the house. And then I would go to Starbucks and watch Netflix. And then I was like, all right, well, maybe I should do something better with my time. And I got a Linux Academy subscription, and I started learning about random stuff on Linux Academy just to be out of the house until it closed every night. That was I just had to get out of the house. And then I got this weird terrible relationship with my coworkers, because we only talked when there was a problem. We did stand up. We did stand up, and then if I was getting a call, if we were using AT&T Connect or something at the time, if that thing rang, it was because there was an issue and someone needed me to handle something. So I didn't want to talk to any of my coworkers because I knew there would be a problem. So that was really interesting, and that was problematic, and I never felt like I was off of work. But again, I didn't take the things. There are things you should do. Again, someone said making your own space to work and knowing when to shut off and things like that. I didn't do those things, and it became miserable. And I was struggled. Like I actually went on a couple interviews, and like the recruitment company was like, "Hey, you want this remote job?" And I was like, "No, do not send me that thing. I need to get out of the house and talk to some people." So it's interesting how to like learning how to approach it. I just know I remember thinking it was going to be the best thing ever, and it wasn't, and that was so weird. Like it hurt me so bad. It hurt me really bad. Like I was like, this is supposed to be the thing.
Yeah.
I will also say, and Amy can probably back me up on this, is as a junior developer, when you're brand new, having team members right there to pair code with side by side in person. Like I've done it over the internet, but there's this invaluable connection you get, and then you have a much better chance of getting a mentor out of that. And in this career, having a mentor is incredible because it immediately gives you resources that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's also like something really valuable about working in person with other coworkers, because even if you're not the one personally like engaging in pair programming or engaging with another coworker, you overhear a lot. So you overhear other people pair programming or solving some problem related to your project. And even like at the very least, you get familiar, like slightly familiar with those terms associated with that piece of your project. So there's a lot to be said for like working in person with your other coworkers. And that is something that like I've missed a lot over the past like couple weeks. But thankfully, like my team has done a lot of like Zoom throughout the day, like meetings, so that we still have a lot of that, but there's a lot in person that, you know, you do lose. So I think that's a very valuable piece to look for.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Awesome. Okay. So now something that people love to talk about is, in terms of tech, you know, everyone gets into tech for different reasons. Money is usually one for a lot of people. GoReactJS asks, anyone have salary negotiation tips? My most recent job, I gave a range, but by time the offer came, I had other offers asking for more. They eventually gave in. Do you give a range when you ask? So does anyone have any salary negotiation advice?
Always give a range.
Yeah.
Always give a range?
Don't nail yourself down to like a single number, because they might be like willing to go higher. You don't know.
Controversial opinion, I just don't give a number.
Yeah.
They interviewed me, they assessed my competencies, let them tell me a number.
I like that a lot.
There's also that dance you play with the recruiter where you're like, oh, they're like, well, how much do you want? You're like, well, how much are you willing to pay?
How much you willing to pay me?
I've definitely gone back and asked for more. My first job wanted me to go all the way to DC, and I was like, that's going to be a lot of money, whether I'm paying for gas or public transportation, and what you're offering me doesn't make that worth it. I said it nicely, but I was like, you're going to have to make it worth it.
That's reasonable. Yeah. That's more than reasonable. It's a lot of money.
So these are all, it's interesting because these are all like the salary negotiation, these are tactics. I think people always look for the one right way, and I don't think there's one right way. I actually used to always give a range. Then I went through this phase where someone very adamantly said, never give a number. And so I used to do what Steven said, and just kind of wait for a number to come along. The only problem with that is sometimes you waste your time going through the interview process. It's possible, but also I've also had some super surprise offers where I'm like, I don't even know if I should accept this because that amount of money feels like I'm not qualified for.
I'm cheating you guys now.
Yeah, but also there is I started to dive into salary negotiation tips a little bit, and someone taught me about something called anchoring, and it is giving that number to kind of start the process, which is very interesting, and like there's a huge psychological battle there, but I've used them all at different number of times. I don't think there's a right answer. It's kind of the one. I think you have to know, like, is your goal to get the most money possible? Is your goal to get exact, like, I mean, if that range is a super comfortable range for you, I think it's fine to say that range. I think it gives you the best chance to make sure the process is something that you and the company are in the same ballpark for. Make sure you're not wasting either one of your times. But again, also, I do think not giving a salary at all does have the potential to maximize your outcome for that. So I think me personally, I never try to give an exact thing. I do try to give people kind of their options for that.
I'm super curious. How much money? What's the limit for turning down a job? Say you wanted 140 and they offered you 135, but you really wanted the job. What would you do?
I think that depends on your situation. Like, can you live off of 135? Like, if you can live off of it and you really want the job, then you're gonna take it. But if you're like, no, I need 140, like minimum to keep my current cost of living, my current standards, then I'm not going to accept anything lower than that.
That's a good point.
I also think it depends on the full benefits package, right?
Yeah,
like
total comp,
401k, things like that. There's a lot more that goes into pay than just straight compensation. There are other benefits and perks.
Yes, do not ignore total comp. Sorry, go ahead, Nicole.
And that's something you can use as some sort of negotiation. It's that I know people who could live off of a little bit less, but they got more vacation or they got a better medical plan because they knew that was more valuable to them.
Yeah. I think people always underestimate, but people don't take into account the total comp package. So definitely make sure you are utilizing the full compensation. Like, I remember I somehow have been super fortunate. So basically, I was a part of the crew that was allowed to stay on their parents' health insurance until they were 26. And ever since I've been 26, I've worked at companies that pay for my healthcare insurance. And when I found out what some of my friends were paying for healthcare, like out of their checks, it was substantial. Like, I think my brother at the time, for his whole family, I think he was telling me something like $300 something was coming out of every check, so $600 a month. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I never even considered that to be a thing. And like, when I started to rethink about, what was really great about my compensation package, it was very, very interesting. And I remember actually one time accepting a job somewhere else, and then actually having to back out of it because I didn't take into account a lot of those things. And once we kind of started to do some math, like, my paychecks were going to be substantially less because of the things I was going to have to be paying for out of it. And I was like, ooh, I thought I was going to be making more, but young and dumb, I guess. So definitely take that full package into account. Stock options, things like that. Like, you can really make out in that fashion. That's good. I like that. Okay. Veronis asks, are there any universal tools that every coder needs to know? For instance, Git, Linux, languages, or whatnot. I think this is a phenomenal question.
I think Git would be a huge kid.
Git.
I think being familiar with a lot of these things is important. No, Jim with a Vim. Heck yeah.
You need to know it, okay?
Jim is now my spirit animal because I'm a
Will you teach me, Vim?
I will.
It'll only take like 4 years.
You'll feel uncomfortable for the first year, and then it's natural.
It's naturally to feel uncomfortable is what it is.
For real, I went through the job hunt twice that last year, and it surprised me how many interviews started out like, do you know Git? What do you know? My current job asked, on a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable you are with Git. And what they're searching for is a 2 or a 3 because that's the average person. Like, no, if you say a 4 or 5, then they're like, how? Like, then they'll narrow their eyes and be like, oh, does this guy really know how to Git bisect? And then they'll really dig in, and it's a way to really suss out the people who are trying to puff up and pretend like they know more. But Git is like the amount of interviews that Git was their first question and required me to know at least like a little bit past the basic commands and know how to work with a team with pull requests and code reviews. Surprised me. So
I would say that having some good background in understanding how Linux systems work is actually very handy. At least know the basic how to SSH into something, how to CD, how to run, execute commands. Like, okay, that's a lot easier. As long as you don't have to be taught those basic things, someone would be like, okay, we can teach you how to do this something or whatever.
Yeah, I really think Linux command line navigation, Linux Unix command line just the navigation helps a lot, because you might be working on a Mac or something, but you're gonna need to be using that to get some stuff installed, and just making sure you know how to move in between directories and check and look and see what files you're looking at. I think basic Linux command line navigation is will be good for everyone. I do think Git is so important. I really Git skills really crushed me when I actually work with a team. When I stopped using it just for my own stuff, I really thought I was a Git master. I was like, Git's so easy. There's 4 things. Like, it's so. Why is everyone talking about this? And even
I can Git push all day.
All day.
Push, pull, clone. I got it.
Terrence and I today were we were dealing with a Git issue. And we were like, screw it, just blow away the whole directory and reclone the repo. Like, just real today, live. So and we have some pretty good experience with Git, but it can be a monster at times. And there was only 3 of us pushing to this repo, and we got into a mess. I don't know how we did it. I don't know.
Merge conflicts, man.
They are. It can be intimidating, and it's okay. It's definitely okay. Here's some interesting questions. There's a few that came through like this. Here's a silly question. When was the last backup you did for your home computer or phone? I find this to be, I never thought to ask this question, but then when I thought about my answer, now I really want to hear everyone else's answer.
If I don't have to manually do it, it will just do it every day.
Right, it's automatic, right? Yeah.
Manually?
Never.
Probably never.
Never. Yeah.
That's a lot of work that
I'm good.
I don't care.
I'm good. I'll just
my phone says it was backed up 15 hours ago, so that's good.
That counts.
Nothing I work on lives on my computer only. Everything has at least a copy somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Plead the 5th on this particular question.
No problem.
I say, keep a copy of all the things that are important to you and keep them in multiple places. Keep them on a external thumb drive. Keep them on a cloud service backup something. If it's important to you, keep a hold of it. But just standard system backups, it's just it'll do it on its own or whatever.
I live life on the edge. The cloud takes what it takes. Hopefully it's got all my stuff. If it doesn't, am I going to die? Probably not. So yeah, I live by that. It's not good. And then someone asked, how many computers do we all have, including the old ones, and maybe what was your first computer? So I think it'll be interesting to hear about that as well.
I own
Jim, do you even have one?
Quick clarification. Do they mean over the whole of our lifetime, or just what we own right now?
Yeah.
I have
let's
3 sitting in front of me right now. Does that count?
Let's say current.
You're out of control.
I have 3 of my own, and then I actually have 2 work laptops here because I never moved everything off of my old one, and then they gave me a new one. So I have 5 in the house, but 3 are mine.
I think personally I'm a little crazy on it, because what I actually have at my house is I have a MacBook, an Alienware, a Surface, a 1U Dell Blade server, a Plex server, a desktop, and then my wife has a desktop and a laptop as well. So we got 8 total.
That is intense and overkill.
You're a madman.
From someone who has overkill computers, you are outdoing my overkill, so you are certainly overkill.
Yeah, I think I have 5.
Ooh.
I think I have 5, but mostly because I still have older ones. They still run. So I bought newer ones, and the old ones are still running. So I use my old laptop for work. Sometimes I have this other newer laptop, and then I built myself a new desktop in August for my birthday. But my old desktop is still running, so I still have that as well. And then I have a work Surface.
Nice.
I'm glad I'm not the only one with a bunch of computers. You guys make me feel better about myself, to be honest. Now I no longer feel like I have
what's
a
your total?
I have 3 of my. I have 1 laptop.
I have 1.
2 and 1. Okay, so I have 1 laptop and 2 desktops.
You guys are the reasons we're running out of IP addresses. I just want that on record.
That's true.
We have IPv6 now. So
IPv6, man.
You're the reason
I've got.
we need IPv6.
Hey, we're pushing the world forward. Okay, that's how I feel at least. Okay, all right. We're coming down to the last 10 minutes. This is good. There are still a lot of questions, but I think we've gotten through a lot, which is good. I'm trying to pick out any like super heavy hitters that a lot of people want to know. Someone asked if we ever used a do loop. That's an interesting question. So have you ever used a do loop? Have you ever used a do loop like for work, like in a real thing?
While?
Yeah, like but not in a bash script.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I said no.
I've never. I don't think I've ever.
In Ruby, that is how you do. Like that is
Oh yeah.
Ruby.
Yes.
It's very specific to Ruby, so I don't think they meant it in that way.
I don't
yes,
think so
I
either.
do.
I'm part. Ever since I learned Go, I'm partially using for loops for everything, even when it doesn't make sense. Just because that's the only loop that Go has. So I apply that knowledge to everything else that I do, even when it makes it tough.
For my looping.
Yeah. Let's see. What else? Actually, we got through a lot of
Most
these.
of the questions, yeah, you're at the bottom.
What's stack? Oh, Adam asked, for someone new to tech, what tech stack should they concentrate on learning? This is very interesting. Does anyone have any?
It's also impossible.
Yeah, it is. I have some.
Interested in is a lot of things like
Not
if you're
Java.
interested in data, maybe checking out Spark, or if you're interested in like front end development. So what you're interested in depends on what like stack you're going to be.
Yeah, it definitely heavily influences it. If you're brand new and you don't know what you want, you're not sure what you want to do yet. I really push people towards JavaScript only because there's a lot of jobs in it. It's pretty it gives you that instant gratification. You can get a lot done quickly, and like there's a lot of jobs. And I think the jobs there are more junior web development and JavaScript jobs than I think than of some other languages, just because they're super plentiful. And so that's the only reason I push people towards JavaScript, not because I think it's amazing. Even though I've actually learned to like JavaScript as much as I used to hate it. I've actually learned to like it.
Why'd you hate it
I
in the
love
beginning?
JavaScript.
It's magic. It's so much magic. And stuff will just happen.
It's working.
So the most important thing as a junior developer is not to learn any specific one language really well, because I think, you're as a developer, your best asset is to be flexible and to be able to problem solve no matter what you're coding in.
I like that.
But so as long as you get that logic down, just understand what a loop does. And so when you see a loop in Go or Ruby or JavaScript, like you know what it's doing. And some of them may have really weird ticks or whatever, but as long as you understand, of variables and how to set them and like what functions are and how to pass different variables through it, like that's what you should be focusing on. So if you can find just a really good recommendation for a beginner's guide to coding, like if you can find like a great like mastermind and just
I love
get
the plugs.
and just get that kind of logic in your brain. I wasn't a Ruby programmer before I got this job. I built one thing in Ruby, and that was by following a tutorial on how to build a blog. And they were like, "Do you know Ruby?" And I was like, "I built this one thing," and they were like, "Good enough. This is." And now I'm a full-on Ruby on Rails developer.
That's awesome.
And it's mostly because I can recognize many basic functions in what they do. And I can at least talk about it and talk to my senior programmers. It's like, I understand what this is doing. And then, help me understand how it works in Ruby.
Yeah.
I've found design patterns are kind of an underrated skill. Learning about different software design patterns is definitely helpful, especially because it transcends language. So like they're transferable from language to language. Like when you're learning about things like the observer pattern or like factory patterns and like all those different things. And there are a lot of good resources for beginners on that. So that's one of the skills I feel like is very underrated, but it's a very good skill to have.
I will also say in my interviews, one of the best pieces of advice I got is like, even if you don't know exactly how to do what they're asking, if you can write out your your thought steps and just explain like, okay, I know you want, this is what I'm starting with, this is what the end is. These are the steps I would do in a language, even if you don't know the language. The fact that you can express, what the thought process is to make the computer do what you want, then it's just learning the vocabulary.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with all those things. I think that was so tough for me coming from a non-software background, dealing with systems things. I think that was my problem with JavaScript is there's so much happening that's I wasn't sure if it was part of just JavaScript's like core libraries, or if they were like, I couldn't tell what was external packages and stuff, and like all kinds of stuff was just happening. And so I like learning Go helped me so much. Like it really like tied things down for me a little bit. Like I was decent at, I was a pretty good scripter, and like I had written a lot of a lot of logic, but learning Go just helped me kind of understand it a lot more. Like I said, I'm still not amazing at all, but it's really helping, and I don't know, that was my disdain for JavaScript. But as someone who now really likes to use the code to solve problems rather than trying to really like just learn a language, I like JavaScript has you can do a lot quickly, just like with Python. You can do a lot quickly with JavaScript, and you can do fun things as well. And so I don't know, it's nice. It's fun. I do think it's a fun language. I think it's fun. It has the best syntax colors in VS Code as well. It does.
Instant gratification.
Yeah. Does anyone have any this is you used to get this a long time ago, and I'm sorry I skipped this one because I didn't understand the question. It says, why do front-end developers eat lunch alone? Oh, never mind, this was a joke. Because they don't know how to join tables. Okay, I get it. I get that. I didn't read the whole question. I was like, at first I was just like, it's mean, but that makes sense. I know, it's kind of good. It's good. It's actually pretty darn good.
It's good, man.
Okay. Let's see. I actually think we got through all the questions that I saw. Actually, so we actually made perfect timing. No, there's one in here with a little bit of time that we have left. Perfect. Someone asked what our views are on no code development. Kind of a new thing. People have talked about it a bit, where you should be able to, like, these platforms and stuff that are trying to set it up so where you don't actually need to know code, but you can build an app without knowing how to write code. How do people feel about that? That's a good question.
I got nothing.
I don't know.
Like Squarespace?
I think like Squarespace, but for like applications, like mobile and like web applications. So yes, it's a thing that's been thrown around. I've seen some implementations.
Like Flash.
I think it's going to be hard to understand what the logic is if you've never studied any of the logic. Like, I don't know how to make a thing do this over and over and over again if I don't know what the logic is behind it.
But remember, Flash is the future.
Yep, I remember. What are you saying, Amy?
I think it just depends, like, how in depth you want to get with coding. Like, if doing that serves the purpose that you're trying to accomplish, then that's awesome that thing exists.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you are interested in like being able to customize that a little bit more, understand like, I mean, that obviously is a program in itself. So someone had to code that, right? So like, if you're interested in like the logic behind that, or like how that stuff like even gets made, or, a little bit more in depth, then I mean, I would say that's not really necessarily the thing for you. Like maybe start there, but then get a little deeper.
Yeah,
I think
it might be a way to learn how the logic works, but in terms of development, you lose a lot of the personalization. You lose the ability to make it more robust and more secure. A lot of our jobs require us to be able to enhance a lot of these things as new tech comes out.
Yeah,
and I think that at least for now, no code development will always be a little bit on the other end of the curve when it comes to new, better ways to do things.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think no code development. I think it's an interesting thing. It is like it's like this. It's like Squarespace. Although Squarespace is great for making websites, it is great for people who need a website up. It's great. Yeah. It's great for what it is, but it doesn't take the place of like. There's a subset of people who can get away with that, and there's a subset of everyone else can't, and will need some custom development. I think the same thing is going to happen for no code. I think it's going to allow people who currently would not have some type of app or website. It would allow them to participate in having one. I think there will always be limited functionality. So it'll open the doors a little bit, but I think it'll still be, it's for a segment that doesn't currently, I think, utilize tech in the way that we think about it now. But I don't know. I think it's cool to see like making it a little more accessible.
I think it'd be good for people who are just starting out too, whether you're older and doing a career change or just younger, but just to kind of see what you can do without having to invest too much in learning about code, and then see if like, oh, this is really cool. I really love the process of building something. Let me expand further. But actually I worked with some kids early in the year where they partnered with this team in Ireland, and they were coming up with apps that could help save the world, whether it's like through pollution or global warming or food scarcity. And the teams designed these apps, and then the kids build them, but they didn't know how to code, but they're able to do it with these no-code apps.
Yeah.
So it was cool, and like a lot of them really loved the process of it, and some of them even went as far as this one group of kids really impressed me. They were trying to make like their own smartwatch, and they even ordered like programmable like screens and everything. Like you still have to like physically plug it in, but they already had plans for doing it where it could where like a mobile battery source and everything. So it's pretty interesting. Like they're able to start crafting these things without knowing any code.
That's awesome.
That's pretty cool.
That's cool. Well, we are at that 10 o'clock mark. So one, I would love to and chat also join me in thanking everyone who's a part of our panel. I really appreciate your time. I owe you all lunch, I promise. We did this, the people who participated in the, we did one of these back in like November, and we got Chick-fil-A. We all ordered, a lot of Chick-fil-A. So whenever we can all meet again, or maybe I'll send some stuff to your house or something. But I truly, genuinely appreciate your time. Also, again, this is a special day. This day marks the end of 12 weeks in our Python bootcamp. This is the final day of the first session of 12-week boot camps for 2020. So super exciting. We started on like January 5th or something like that. And we are where we are now. We will host these at the end of every boot camp because I think it's important for people to be able to hear from different people in the industry, hear about those experiences, hear how they vary. Like a lot of the people tonight have varied experiences, and those experiences also differed from the people that we talked to on Sunday. So I hope it puts into context some things that go on in the industry. Everyone doesn't have to have a CS degree. Everyone doesn't have to have done this or that. You don't have to be great at math. You don't have to, I don't know. There's a spot for everyone, and there's different paths to get into it. There's more information about the next round of boot camps. There will probably be 2 additional boot camps that run on the next run. It was going to wait until May. We were going to run smaller workshops in between now and the next set of boot camps, but because everyone's at home, we may start them up immediately or really soon. May take a week off of the boot camp thing. But yeah, so just keep an eye out for that if you're interested. We're going to do on Friday, we're going to do a boot camp retrospective. So we're going to talk about what went on during the boot camps, what we liked, what we didn't like, things that could have gone better, things that you want to see happen in the future. I think it'll be pretty dope. But I want everyone to give yourselves a round of applause for making it this far. I'm actually super duper impressed by watching the number counts, not because I super care about I want 1 million people watching, but it was to watch how many people stay engaged through 12 weeks. And I'm sure there's been some churn, but like, it's pretty impressive how static the numbers have been kind of through the 12 weeks. So I really want everyone to give themselves a round of applause. I've seen some of you participate in the entire 12 weeks, so definitely be proud of yourself. But Vim Bootcamp, I love it. See, these are all things that we are going to be doing super soon. So stay tuned to the website, stay tuned to our social media so we can let you guys know whenever we're doing something. Also, I just want to shout out Baltimore Coding Coffee and Nicole. We did a super meetup on last Saturday and it was pretty awesome, just since we're all displaced. And so we will be running another one on the April 4th, I believe. We're still trying to work out the details of exactly what that is, but information is coming out super soon about that. But she's a great resource. There's a bunch of there's some Coding Coffee Slacks and things. There's also Coding Coffees probably in your area. So we can get you all information on those things as well. Yeah, does anyone want to plug anything who's on the panel right now?
Slack.baltimoretech.org. We have a Coding Coffee channel. That's the best place to get our news. Also, if you search meetup.com, Baltimore Coding Coffee, that's where all our events are. We used to meet in person every other week. Now we do awesome online stuff, and it's a great resource. I'm trying to make sure people are getting some awesome tools and resources to help them with the job search, as well as how to work remotely, and starting some conversations on Slack. So join us.
Excellent. Anyone else? Anything cool to plug? Anyone's birthday coming up or something?
Oh, Aaron just had a birthday, by the way.
Yeah, I'm old now. Now I'm
dirty 30.
I'm washed up. It's okay. But cool. All right, excellent. Also, if anyone wants to, be a part of an open source project, or just to see me and Terrence and some other people, we actually had some viewers join in today and help us build some stuff. We are attempting to put together an application. It sucks because we're in the tedious portion. We're not actually developing anything. We're doing configuration of a CMS that we don't know. So we gotta read it, a lot of documentation and stuff. And yeah, you can watch us struggle. So we're on all day for the rest of the week, from 9:30 or 10 o'clock until the afternoon. You can check us out, feel free, but again, keep an eye out we're running a lot of workshops. There will be Kubernetes workshop coming up. I like the Vim idea. We'll do a Vim one as well, but that is I want to plug Mid-Atlantic CCDC for those in Baltimore. I don't know what that is, but
that is the Cyber Computer Defense Challenge. It's a hacking competition. Basically, you get to be blue team, and then red team trying to break into your systems. I actually participated. I participated in that back at Towson a long time ago. So
yeah, that's dope. That is pretty cool. I would. Is there an age limit on that? Yeah, how young?
For sure. Again, we were just going through our school system, so I think it was a lot of schools were involved in that. So.
Okay, that's awesome. This is pretty cool. I've always wanted to see how these things work. Pretty dope. Excellent. Well, look at that. We now I'm excited about something. I'm actually going to do more research than I want to do about this after we get off of this stream. But cool. We're going to head over and we're going to raid CM Griffin tonight. When we get over there, just say what's up, say hello, see what you can learn. Again, there's a lot of people doing dope things right now. So look out for some resources if you're looking to, get into tech at any level. You're looking to pick up some skills. You're looking to help each other out. Be kind to each other during this wild time. But yeah, we say hello to CM Griffin. I did it right this time. I pre-typed it because you guys know I have fat fingers, so I was able to take my time and type it out early. So we have 4 seconds left. 3, 2, 1. I'll see everybody later. Have a good night.
See you guys.